Everything I learned by doing it wrong first. Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jacksonville Planning Advisory Board to order for February 9th, 2026. If I could get you to stand, and we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Lozan?
Lord, thank you for this evening. We can come together as a body and discuss the details of the city of Jacksonville that we live in. And we're just blessed to be here, Lord. Been kind of crazy weather, and hoping everyone's been safe, and as we deal with those things and our families. And for service members who are away and in harm's way, we ask you to be with them, Lord, and protect them, and be with their families who are back here trying to keep it all together, and it's a struggle. We've been there, done that. So what we ask you to be with us tonight as we make some important decisions that we'll pass on up to City Council, and as we continue to grow, and that we make these decisions in the right way, but we also depend on you and help us make those decisions. So thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve our great city here. And we just ask you to continue to bless us and bless our nation. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Doug. All right. My fellow board members, you'll see that you have an agenda in front of you. If you
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve the agenda. Looking for a second? Grace, thank you. Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. This is our opportunity for public comment. If there are people in the audience that are going to speak, Ryan, do we have anyone signed up?
Mr. Chairman, we did not put out the form, but I believe you may have some folks in the audience that would like to partake.
And they're entitled to how many minutes, sir?
We have a 15-minute period. Each speaker's allowed 3 minutes.
Okay. So if there's anyone that would like to speak, I recognize Mr. Mandy Daughtry back there. Please come up, sir. And
I don't know if I can do enough in phases 3 minutes.
I won't tell you we're disappointed.
My name's Manfred Daughtry. I'm proud to say I've been calling Jacksonville my home for 75 years. And I understand that y'all guys are rezoning a piece of property on Blue Creek Road, Blue Creek area, Pony Farm Road, that 169 acres. And I'm a little confused. I talked to Mr. King today. He was very informative. I appreciate that. But it seems to me y'all guys are rezoning a piece of property that then you got to turn around and rezone to rezone. I think in the same meeting tonight. Don't understand it, but some of my concerns are the highway, the roads can't, if you leave for early in the morning and you're on Blue Creek Road and you're going to 258, the traffic is backed up 3/4 of a mile. So 500, 600 more residents are certainly going to make it worse. And Pony Farm is just about not any better. I just think that this satellite annexation is causing more problems than it's helping. I don't know what the area is from the city that you can do it on, but if it's 3 miles, y'all guys are pressing it pretty hard. I don't think it'll go that far. But we've got our school systems are bulging. We've got several schools out in that area. They can't take it anymore without building more buildings. So I'm just requesting that this body don't rezone and don't rezone to rezone, and don't recommend to council, who I'm familiar with pretty well. My father served on it 12 years, and he was the chairman of this board also. So I've got a general idea of the things going on. And like I say, I moved there 2 years ago, and I got a beautiful wife and a nice home, 2 horses, and a tractor. So I appreciate it so much for your time. I'm going to let Mr. Shiver take some time there.
Thank you, Mr. Daughtry.
Thank you.
You did it in 2 minutes, Mandy.
No, that was good.
Good evening. I'm Jimmy Shiver. I'm Mandy's neighbor. I live at 142 Troy Avenue. I noticed the signs over on Blue Creek and Pony Farm Road, and we know it was rezoned by the county, and I noticed city signs, so that's what sort of got my interest or concern about this. We wonder how it's going to affect us, when it may affect us. I know the county zoned it for single-family dwellings. Now I'm hearing after it goes to council and after it gets annexed, that zoning will change that from single-family to multifamily, duplex, possible apartments, single-family. So we've got some concerns. There's a reason that we live where we live at, was to live kind of with a little bit more space and room, and all due respect to city residents, but we knew we were outside the city limits, and then if someone could possibly explain the process, and maybe this will be something for planning board, I don't know, or the planning officials, the ones that work in the department. I know years ago they changed the process, and the process changed as far as annexation, and now we've got this voluntary satellite zoning, and I know the owners of the property must have requested this, but the city limits now, my understanding, are up around Walgreens drugstore, I believe. So when you jump out, or you're able to jump out, not only us, what's going to happen to those folks, or what are they going to be facing living between two city limits on both sides of them? But and I don't have anything to do with them, but we're worried about what's going to happen to our community where we've got a little space and we only pay county taxes versus what we could be faced, what it's going to open the door to. And I know the city's got that force main running around Pony Farm Road in the other direction. They've got the existing line on Blue Creek going out to your processing plant. Are we looking at in the near future to the entire Pony Farm loop to be drawn into the city? I mean, we've got a lot of unanswered questions and concerns. And I know on my behalf, and I think there's others, mine will probably go up for sale. But that's just my perspective. I mean, like I said, I can respect it, and just like we didn't know anything about this, I wouldn't have known about this meeting tonight if I hadn't just seen the signs that I saw being put up Friday afternoon. I was told this morning that I wouldn't have even got a letter because mine does not directly abut this property, but I'm within like 300 feet. So there's just concerns there. And I mean, I think they're valid, but if you consider that, and I know there's a lot of money and growth and all that factors back into the equation too, but it seems like we don't get a lot of notice, about things like this either.
Yes, sir.
But I'd appreciate, whatever.
Thank you for your
folks can
comments,
do.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that has comments to make to the planning advisory board?
I'll say something. Jason Houston, 306 New Bridge Street. I just want to point out a couple things. The property in question was rezoned by the county to R15, but another portion of it was zoned highway business, which is a very high dense area that does allow multifamily. So while I know said that there wasn't any multifamily or anything, there was always multifamily there. That was the goal from the start. We had it rezoned CC, or sorry, that's the city's version. We had it zoned HB, highway business, in the county. So traffic, we know traffic. DOT is going to have fun with us when we start showing them trips and counts. And we know that there's improvements at the Pony Farm, Blue Creek Road that are going to need to be done. There's going to be some signalization, turn lanes. There'll be lots of stuff done. In regards to utilities, you guys know that your sewage force main runs right down through there. And it seems to me to make sense to grow towards where you have some of your facilities instead of growing in opposite directions. It doesn't make sense for this sewer to get pumped all the way to Onwassa that then goes all the way to Richlands when you got a treatment plant just the next door over. So anyway, I can talk some more later when it comes up on the agenda if we have any more specific questions, but I did want to just say that out loud. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Debbie, you got anything you want to say?
Just briefly, and I hear that gentleman's perspective, but this property is divided by Blue Creek Road, and only 17 acres got the county approval for business. The bulk of it, about 150 acres, 40-some acres, were approved for single-family dwellings only. So that's.
Right. All right, let's, if we, I think we're closing out the public comment, and so the board will look, you have minutes in front of you from our last meeting. I would,
I'll make a motion for the minutes as written.
okay, I have a motion, and looking for a second.
Second.
Got a second on the minutes from last meeting? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go. So the minutes are approved. We have a city councilman with us, Councilman Logan Sosa. Give us an update, sir.
Well, thanks for having us. We're trying to get the new year started. We have a new council, some new members on there, so we're trying to get that head in the right direction. Our biggest thing we've been working on, and Anthony's been a huge help on, is we're trying to get the 400 acres going. We've been working with the county and the commissioners, trying to have a partnership with them so we can offer the services for the entire county. So we've got a lot of things in the works, and hopefully, soon we'll be able to start making some headway. So, so appreciate all the city staff and the county commissioners helping us out and working with us as well. So that's the biggest thing right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate what you do, Councilman Sosa.
Thank you.
Great day. I show nothing under old business, so it looks like we will move along to new business. Ryan, we have 4 items up for bid.
Thank you, Chairman, planning board members. Item number 1 is a rezoning, as are all 4 items tonight. Although some are technically zonings, based on a possible annexation or 2 annexation requests. But specifically for number 1, this is a rezoning, the intersection of Piney Green Road and Carver Drive. There's 3 individual parcels owned by 3 different property owners. The information is before you on the screen. It's basically close to 7 acres. It's currently zoned residential single-family 20. Staff is created a staff-initiated rezoning request to change this area to corridor commercial. So based on the recent general statutes, we can no longer really just do staff-initiated rezonings without owner signatures. So we reached out to all 3 property owners. They all signed the applications for rezonings, which can be found in your attachment C. An ortho image of the site you'll see is the back part is owned by Onslow County. That is a transfer station for refuse. And then the parcels there at the corner, and then the parcel on the other side, the parcel in the corner is the former volunteer fire department. They have a new house there, so that's no longer being utilized by the Piney Green volunteer firefighters. And they've signed on for the rezoning. And then the next piece is a little apartment complex owned by Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And it's currently a non-conforming use. It's zoned residential, but they have multifamily there. So the proposal would be to take it from its current green color, which is RSF 20, and change it to corridor commercial, which is similar to the zoning that's within the area. There's some exception to that. Obviously, the property to the rear is either residential, multifamily, high density, or single family, 20 or 10. And then just south off the screen is the shopping center there at the corner of Piney Green Road and Freedom Way, where the Food Lion and Starbucks and some other restaurants and businesses there. So the City of Jacksonville CAMA land use plan, this identifies what we would be looking to change the property to if, change the land use plan to if the rezoning is approved. We did, on some leftover snow days here, we posted signs, as I believe one of the public speakers alluded to last week, so I'll talk about that for just a minute. So planning staff, we advertise 3 different ways that we're required to do per the North Carolina general statutes. So we post signs on the site, we send out letters to all the adjoiners, and that includes across the street adjoiners, and we also post a newspaper ad. We are required by law to do that no sooner than 10 days before the hearing, which is the council meeting, and no more than 25 days. So we have a 10 to 25 day window that we are required by state law to advertise within. We're only required to advertise, like I said, those adjoiners. So those those are the folks, the property owners that get the letter. But then, as is previously stated, the signs work as long as we place them. So there was a meeting about a year ago where we've started making sure that we put more signs just to make sure that it catches everybody's eyes. And then also the fallback is the newspaper ad. So that's why there's kind of a very finite period of time, and it's also a finite number of people that we are required by law to advertise to. So this advertisement's not for the planning board recommendation, it's actually advertising for next week's city council meeting. So that's what the 10 to 25 days is based on. So that's when the public hearing will be, where anybody that has concerns or want to speak in favor or against, they'll have that opportunity in front of city council. So with rezonings, we've got to make sure that it's consistent with the CAMA land use plan and that the proposal is reasonable. So given the fact that this is all basically kind of being used as commercial uses, we don't feel the RSF 20 is the appropriate zone. And that's why we're recommending that the board approve this rezoning request based on findings of fact A through J being found in the affirmative, and that is consistent with the CAMA land use plan that designates these parcels as mixed use. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I heard you say that the three property owners that are affected here are good with this.
That's correct.
They're excited about it, okay. And the apartment doesn't create a problem being not in compliance?
But it's not in compliance today, so this rezoning doesn't make it more or less compliance. So, I mean, it gives the landowners more options there on Piney Green Road should they decide to redevelop their property in the future, or if they were to sell it to somebody else, it gives them more opportunities. If you look at the zoning around it, you know, there's quite a bit of corridor commercial here. This is the railroad right-of-way right here at the bottom of the screen. You know, so that's the railroad tracks, and a lot of the stuff down here is commercial. You do have the mini storage here, the apartment complex here, convenience stores down here on both sides of Piney Green, and then this is where the Food Lion Shopping Center is.
Okay.
So my question is, like, what was the purpose for this?
So when there were some discussions that we were having with the county, and we looked at the area and we decided to go ahead and bring it forth, and we reached out to the owners and said, would you be willing to sign off on this rezoning? And they supported that change. So we brought forth, since we're not able to remember a few years back, we would just randomly bring in areas and say, hey, we want to rezone this area because, you know, it doesn't make sense. I think the last one was they're close to 24 in Western Boulevard. We're not able to do that now unless we get ownership to buy in. So if somebody's having discussions with us or we're having discussions with them, you know, we felt that this would be a good area to go ahead and rezone from this RSF 20 zone.
All right, well, if one of the property owners said no, then what does that do then? I mean, in this case, they all agreed, but it seems like.
We wouldn't include them within the rezoning.
I'm just kind of seeing, like, what's the vision here? What's the purpose? You know, because you had to go to the owners and say, hey, we want to do this, but we need you to get you on board. You know, and they say, we don't want to be on board.
And if that's the case, then they wouldn't have been included in the petition. But I can tell you that there was not any arm twisting for any of these three.
I'd see that. I mean, people aren't going to sign what they want. I just.
And if they don't sign on.
What's the overall vision here of turning this into, you know, commercial corridor?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I can add some background that may help with this. Ryan's doing an excellent job with giving you the diplomatic planning answer, because you're not really allowed to consider specific uses when you do a rezoning like this. But the reason that this got started is because the county wants to make some improvements to the property they have. Right now, it's the site of a transfer station, but at some point in the near future, it could become an EMS site as well. And then the zoning that's on it right now, RSF 20, that is a significant hurdle. So like Brian was said, that was the impetus. And then looking around in context, it just simply made sense to get the other two property owners
Well,
involved.
yeah, it just gives me a better understanding. Anybody who's watching us on G10 is going to
Sure.
help them understand what's What's the purpose, what's the mission, and what prompted this, yeah.
But please know, we can't make the decision based upon the EMS station. It has to be made based
Yeah.
upon this being the right planning move, as Ryan has described. So, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks.
And I guess the question is, what makes sense? I mean, does it make sense that you're going to have residential, single-family houses pop up there? No. I mean,
Probably not.
even in the future. So it just, when you look at the whole map and you see it change to all commercial corridor, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
And one other thing is you do have, 20 years ago, you didn't have sewers that ran up Piney Green Road that you now have. Although it's on WASA's service, there is municipal service through on WASA, and then there's even city services down here at the shopping center. So there's two opportunities. So anytime you have that sewer component, that's going to be a driving force in terms of where, more dense development can go.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions
No.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes.
Oh,
I make a motion
you
to
have a motion.
approve the rezoning request accepting the evaluation found within the staff report based on findings of facts A through J being found in the affirmative, and especially since all property owners agreed and signed.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Are you good with the motion?
We need that consistency statement, please, and that it's reasonable.
She did the findings A through J.
A through J being
Right,
found in
and
the
then the proposed
affirmative.
amendment is
Consistent with the
reasonable and
Campbell use
consistent.
plan.
Okay.
I'd like to amend her motion to include the,
I make a motion to approve the rezoning request accepting the evaluation found within the staff report based on findings of facts A through J being found in the affirmative.
And that the proposed map is
Yes,
reasonable and consistent with the Campbell land use plan.
yes. And the proposed map
And I second.
amendment is reasonable and consists with the Cameron Land Use Plan, which designates these parcels as mixed use.
Thank you.
so we have a good motion.
Yeah.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on this?
Ryan, do we anticipate any adjoining property owners having a problem since they're like single families next to this commercial corridor rezoning?
Looking at the parcels around it, I believe they're undeveloped and vacant
Okay.
on, the area to the, around the, let's see.
Any further discussion?
Around here, that's the wrong color. Yeah, these are undeveloped currently, so, I wouldn't anticipate any, but you never know.
Okay. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 2, Burgaw Highway? Huh? Jennifer?
So this next rezoning request was received from Tidewater and Associates on behalf of Bobby Morton. They requested to rezone 2 properties at the intersection of Burgaw Highway and Old Maplehurst Road to corridor commercial. The properties are currently zoned under Onslow County. This is a satellite annexation request as well. So the properties are currently zoned by Onslow County as highway business conditional zoning. So we feel that the corridor commercial district is the most the closest district within our jurisdiction for commercial uses. The property is about 6.5 acres total, 6.7 acres total. It is at that intersection again with Burgaw Highway and Old Maplehurst Road. Because this is a satellite annexation, the rezoning request is technically inconsistent with the Campbell Land Use Plan. We would have to amend the Campbell Land Use Plan to designate this area, which staff feels the closest, most appropriate district would be the regional commercial designation under the Campbell Land Use Plan. So if approved, we would just recommend that the recommendation include direction to staff to amend that Campbell Land Use Plan to include that designation for this property. And I can answer any questions that you have. Tidewater is here also, as if you have any specific questions for them. But again, we feel like corridor commercial is probably the most appropriate zoning for this area. And again, it is already zoned highway business under the county's designation.
With the rural agriculture zoning, what is currently being used in those places? It looked like residential from the.
So it's sort of a mixed bag of uses in that area. There are a lot of residential properties. There is a gas station at the corner at that intersection. Across the street is the high school, Southwest High School. So there's sort of a mix of uses in that area. You've got some higher density mobile home park development to the east, and then some single family to the south. So it's sort of a mix of institutional with the school uses. There's a school that's to the south of this property as well.
And then to follow up with that, how does the city zoning, like setbacks and buffering zones, how does that compare? Like, for instance, if rural agriculture was residential single-family home in the city limits, that you would have to have like a 20-foot barrier or 30-foot, I can't remember. Are they set to the same standard with it being county zoning outside of it?
So we would require, site plan approval for anything, any commercial use would essentially require that site plan approval. And we do have buffer standards and landscaping standards that would apply for this site.
So the city would view it as residential single-family home, not commercial corridor, like next to it?
Our buffering standards are set up, the way that the buffering is under the landscaping ordinance, basically you have a certain standard for commercial versus residential use types. I would assume that we would apply it, the same way, even though it's outside of the jurisdiction. You want to speak to that, or?
The table's pretty specific that it's city zone next to city zone, so I don't think that we would view what's on the adjoiner. So 4-foot perimeter lawn would be what would probably be around the outside, because the table is not set up to reflect the county zoning districts the way that it's currently written.
So we would view it as basically commercial surrounding it, not residential, I guess.
I don't know that it was necessarily that it's commercial next to it. It just would not trigger that type A buffer or the type B buffer. So there wouldn't be an additional 30-foot area because it's not one of the zones in the table because it's a county district.
Good question. If it's not inappropriate to ask, what's driving this one?
This one, Mr. Prince, do you mind answering that? This one kind of kind of joke about this one. We knew about the one that was happening there on the other side of this town, but this one kind of, for me, it really just kind of came out of, it was pretty quick. But I believe that that Mr. Prince might have a little bit more information on that than I have that he can speak to.
If you're allowed to, share with us.
Absolutely, sure. So this one is part utilities and part development standards is really what I would say. So the utilities are very important because we're going to be providing them with water. I don't believe we're going to be providing them with sewer. I believe that's on WASA. I may have those backwards.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so anyways, that's what initiated the annexation, but the benefit that they get from our zoning district versus the counties is they get some internal flexibility on the site to be able to locate things in a way that they prefer with their site plan. It gives them additional flexibility that they just...
That they wouldn't otherwise have been with the county.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
So, I'm reading down through here and tried to explain it to me that you're asking us to direct the staff to amend a CAMA use plan, but yet it's inconsistent with the CAMA land use plan, but we're going to amend this to make this work. So explain that, why we're having to go through all this. Especially when you end the statement saying it's outside our jurisdiction.
So it's not currently within our planning jurisdiction, so our CAMA land use plan does not reflect this area. So we would have to amend the plan essentially to incorporate this area, this property, and to designate it under that regional commercial land use designation. So it's similar to the rezoning process, but by rezoning the property, we would also have to amend the land use plan.
So the city's land use plan doesn't currently have this property in our land use plan at all because it's in the county's jurisdiction. City council annexes this property into the city limits. We've got to amend our plan to add this parcel to the plan. That's why it's not consistent, because it's not in our plan.
The city did annex it.
But if,
No, it's being considered next week. So if it's annexed, we've got to be ready to establish city zoning. So we're just, versus waiting, till the next month or the month after, we're just bringing this to where we'll have city zoning in place at the same time should council annex this property next week. If they decide not to, then this rezoning will just die.
yeah, you can't zone the property you don't own.
Correct.
Right.
Or you don't have. Okay, fair enough.
I have a question. I noticed that right now, it's with the county, it's zoned highway business conditional zoning. And having been on this board as long as we have, I remember that we had conditional zoning for properties that were kind of questionable, where we wanted to have some control over what went where and why. Now, we don't do that in the city. But I'm just raising a heads up that somebody somewhere must have had some problems with this in the past, and that caused the county to tag that conditional rezoning, because that's usually why they do it. I'm not reading their mind. I'm just saying that if it were me, that's why it would originally was conditional rezoning. So I'm just pointing that out.
I think he has something to say. Jason?
I can answer all these questions. Jason Houston, 306 New Bridge Street. All right, so first, there's an agreement between Onwassa and the city of Jacksonville. This entire area is tributary to the old Springdale treatment plant. I guess it was 2012 I designed it, but I don't remember. We got rid of the Springdale treatment plant and built the Southwest Regional Lift Station down on Blue Creek School Road. As part of that agreement, the Onwassas, all their sewer now goes to your treatment plant. As part of that same agreement, anybody who tied on to that system had to first come to the city of Jacksonville and ask permission. As part of asking permission, the first hurdle was you had to say, well, we want to tie on with sewer, but you had to give, the city of Jacksonville had to first write a refusal to say, we don't want to annex you, but we'll still serve you sewer. So years ago, the question was asked, do you guys want this? And at that time, the answer was no. All right. Since then, we did a conditional rezone with the county. The conditional rezone, the conditions that were set upon it were more to do with driveway locations and turn lanes and those kinds of things than it was pretty much anything else. There may have been a buffer somewhere in there, a buffer requirement of some sort, but the main deal was for transportation. We all know DOT controls all that language. Since then, the developer has decided he's ready to start the project now. Well, we never actually had a sewer permit. So we came to get a sewer permit. And now the staff has decided that they would like for us to be in the city of Jacksonville. And the owner is not opposed to that. So that's why we have annexed, and that's why we're going through this process. But that's the whole story. So.
Thank you for the insight.
I will piggyback on what Mr. Housen just said. The pump station he's talking about is the one beside the two apartment complexes on Blue Creek School Road, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's one thing. And Anthony, if I say this wrong, please. So in order to get city water and sewer, you must first petition to be annexed, to be denied to get an out-of-city water and sewer agreement. So council could deny any one of these and say, no, but then that makes them eligible to then get an out-of-city water and sewer agreement. That doesn't mean that's what council will do, but that's the process in which to get city services. So with the agreement that has happened since the 2012-16 timeframe, just thought I would point that out, that that is part of the city's standards as far as if you want city sewer, there's a process, and annexation is that process.
Were all the adjoiners, they were all notified even if they're county residents?
Yes, if they're adjoiners, we have to by law notify them, so the letters and the signs went out same time that the other property was signed and letters went out, which is within that 10 to 25-day window.
Brian, us agreeing to make it corridor commercial, is that going to affect the blue one that's on top of it, the highway business?
No, that's not being part, that's not part of this
But
request.
it's not going to do anything to them and make them
It's
change?
going to be a similar zoning district at highway business. They call theirs highway business, we call ours corridor commercial.
Yeah.
There may be some uses that they allow that we don't, and vice versa, but it's the most comparable one, we believe, to the city's corridor
And
commercial.
that will remain county, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions?
One other thing, so if they deny the annexation, they can then ask for out-of-city water and sewer, but I believe it's double the charge, so it would be a double rate. So, I mean, that's also kind of part of that weighs in on, well, if council says no, then the rates would be higher, but they could then petition for the out-of-city water and sewer rates.
Could we require a type A barrier or buffer for this zoning, like this particular one?
This is a standard zone. I don't believe that we would be able to do that unless the applicant petitioned, amended their petition to quarter commercial conditional zone and establish that requirement.
Do we know what it's going to be?
Utilities, I think is what it is.
Is something in the works already to go here, or just trying to get the land ready? Or you don't want to talk about it?
Well, we had something big, we had a whole big plan done with the county, but now he's since decided to pare it down to something a lot smaller.
I guess my biggest concern is, like we've all said, 53 is already kind of busting at the seams, and I don't know to what density would go there, but, and I know that's a DOT thing, but that light really, I mean, in my opinion, can't handle it. You got that old sanitation thing across the street at the other side, so I just don't know what are they going to do to fix that road. I mean, the intersection down the Walgreens, I mean, that's been kicked down, they keep changing that all the time. I mean, I think we're getting closer now to get that funded, and that's a huge project. And I said, I think maybe one of those guys, some of the traffic, just up and down in that 53 area, I mean, how do they handle that?
That would be part of their,
Well, correct, but say if we do this and then DOT, they'll make their decision, I guess, further down the road.
but that would be part of their driveway permit, that is correct.
Yeah.
And if it triggers a transportation impact analysis, then they would have to have that study done, and whatever the findings may yield from that, plus the driveway permit.
I don't think there's any turning lanes down 53, right? I
There
don't think-
may,
I mean, I know that gas station is not, you turn right directly into it. I mean, I don't think there's any like dedicated turning lanes down that road.
Not down
doesn't look like
Old
it.
Maplehurst, but
Or down
53.
I don't think there's, because you got the schools and you got houses, and there's no like dedicated turning lane like you'd say down like Western Boulevard or something of that nature.
Oh, no.
So it looks like there could be errors.
There's a
there.
center
Well, you got
lane,
the center, yeah, but.
but not a
across that
designated
thing-
right turn.
Right.
I guess my biggest concern, like for the board, I guess, is you have all these residential homes around it, and you're gonna basically put them next to a commercial without having any kind of protections or anything that keeps them as a residential home. They're gonna have commercial right up, without much of a setback, and I think that's the biggest concern for myself on this.
It's reasonable.
And to piggyback on what Chase said, and I'm not casting aspersions toward the county, but the only reason we're considering commercial corridor is that the county's gone ahead and called this highway business with conditional use. But maybe we think that that's not a good use for this land. That, where it's at, that it really shouldn't be commercial corridor. It should be residential agriculture, but we don't have that. I guess city council won't have that option to say, okay, well, we'll annex you, but this is what we'd like for you to be, instead of commercial corridor. Is that correct, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
So you're sort of stuck with whatever the county gave you first?
Whatever the applicant applied for, right?
Well, in this case, the city can establish whatever base zoning district it would like to have.
Okay.
But it's already zoned quarter commercial, it's at an intersection, there's municipal services.
Well, it's already zoned highway business.
Correct.
Okay. Based on whatever, the county realizing whatever they wanted it to be.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. And since the recommendation from staff is to approve this, help us, why is staff necessarily inclined to approve it? Ryan, help us.
Well, as I just alluded to, you've got municipal services that are, you got sewer. It's very close to the corporate limits. We've got the annex property right there on Blue Creek School Road, right there beside Southwest High School with Trass, so we're already sending service providers out that way. With the annexation laws in the past, where they've changed those abilities to do that, the only way the city's going to grow is going to be through voluntary petitions, and this is a voluntary petition. Okay. So, I mean, anytime you have a voluntary petition, I think the city needs to think strongly about, do we want to say no to that request?
Okay.
I know that there's been some requests like that that's happened in the past and we said no to, and I think later on we've lived to regret it. And then, so it's one of those things to where staff doesn't take it lightly when we're trying to consider, do we support an annexation request? And I don't think city council does either. But that's the way that we're going to grow, is through the municipal services and also voluntary petitions.
Could we see the aerial again? Now, isn't there a little road right there?
Looks like a dirt path.
It goes like an easy.
Yeah, so would that be a buffer?
That's an easement, it looks
So buffer could mean
Yeah.
different things for different
Yes.
people. Buffer could be, there's a separation of 30 feet.
Right.
Some people look at a buffer as there's a barrier between.
Yeah.
Some people look at it as there's a barrier space and vegetation. And the city's buffering is a fence and landscape and a distance. So while it may be part of some buffer in the distance regard, it doesn't check all the boxes necessarily for a city buffer. And it's also, the city's buffering standards required to be on the developer, the applicant's property, not on the adjoiner. So if that road appears based on, you're talking about the one there at the south, that's on somebody else's property. So we don't allow folks to count a buffer on somebody else's property to serve as the buffer if one is required on their property.
But this site isn't required to have buffering anyways.
There would be a 4-foot perimeter along. That's no fence, just landscaping in a 4-foot area, minimum.
No.
Now, that doesn't mean the developer doesn't put more than that, but that's all that the zoning ordinance requires when a development plan comes in.
Right. And you're not asking us to decide whether it should be annexed or not. We're just setting, should it be annexed, we're setting the zoning.
You're making a recommendation for city council so that if
That's
it
right.
gets annexed by city
Recommendation
council,
to set the zoning.
Could we recommend single family rather than corridor commercial?
I think that you would need to just recommend denial. I don't know that you can change their petition. I think you just have to vote on what's being asked.
Yeah. The questions asked.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it has to meet advertisement requirements too, which basically talks about what the to and from zoning is going to be. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of things to add here.
Sure, please.
So,
You see, we're dying up here.
what's that? So we've basically set a position that we're interested in annexing this property into the city of Jacksonville. And that's very true, but council will make that decision ultimately at their next meeting. Unfortunately, you're in a situation of having to make a recommendation without that actually happening. And that's great, because what we're doing here is we're trying to be friendly to our local developers and trying to compress the timeline for annexation, planning board, zoning, and all that with city council, which is a good thing. In fact, we've gotten it to the point where you can essentially do all of that, Ryan, within less than 60 days, 45 days. But the challenge.
The general statute states when an applicant intends to be moving from the county's jurisdiction to the cities, that we are allowed to begin to take development applications. We could process site plans, we just can't act on a final decision. So the statutes are set up so that we can process things like this before the actual act of annexation occurs.
So the two things that stick out to me is, well, three, actually. I'm not sure anybody up there disagrees that commercial is a good use of the property, other than the fact that we're concerned about the buffer with the next door neighbors.
Right.
And that's very likely, like Mr. Spring pointed out, why the county went forward with a conditional zoning approval as opposed to just a straight zoning approval. So the other thing is that it seems as though there's a vulnerability in our code, and maybe that's not the right way to describe it, but we would want to have some form of buffering requirement, when the surrounding area is outside of our jurisdiction, just like if it were inside our jurisdiction. And that's something that we've never really had to deal with, right, Ryan?
Correct.
So you might be in a situation here, and I don't know how it works for our friends at Tidewater and the owner, where you either recommend what we have here, if you're comfortable with it, and that could carry forward, or you could recommend and see how the project, the project representative feels about coming back with a conditional zoning, because there is a site plan for this, and we could do conditional zoning, Ryan?
Correct.
Yes. If, we all agree that that's the best approach. Or what we could do is we could go back to the UDO, try to figure out how to fix these, out of jurisdictional buffer issues, and then come back with a recommendation at our next meeting. So I think you've got some options there. And just got to figure out what's the most appropriate one for you to recommend.
Yeah. I mean, if we recommend not approving it, it's already been conditional, what did they call it? Highway business, so we're not solving anybody's problem. We're just feeling better about saying, well, we've got some concerns.
Is it fair to say that the primary concern is about the buffering?
I think so.
Now, from a traffic standpoint, I can tell you that that'll come out in the wash, frankly.
Yeah.
It will, between the city's TIA process and the DOT's driveway or permit approval process. That'll all get worked out. Now, they may not turn that into an interchange on their dime, but, they will be required to do certain things to mitigate their impact on the system. So again, I think the question is, do we come back with a CD or, a conditional zoning option? And that would be up to they would have to agree to that. Or do we go forward with the corridor commercial with the understanding that next planning board, we would come back with buffer requirements for those, properties that are surrounded by, area outside the city's jurisdiction?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Mr. Houston a question? if I can put him on the spot.
No, go ahead.
The property there to the left, is there a ditch or a?
So I'll explain all that.
Okay.
So obviously, we wouldn't have any buffers up against the highway.
Right.
I don't think we care about the buffer next to the
Yeah.
gas station.
Okay.
And to our left is a stream, right? So this area here that you see, this is a stream. That's why it's so crooked and runs
Yeah.
across the
Okay.
street. That area is, we're not going to clear that area anyway. It's the bottom of a swamp. Anything we do over there would be a stormwater device, and it'd be out of the swamp anyway. So so the only line we're really talking about is the one to our south.
Okay.
And I don't want to say what we are or not going to do, but we had a buffer on the last plan we did there. I don't think it's a deal breaker in any manner. I know what we're trying to do now. It ain't a problem now. So I don't see an issue with any of that. I don't know what that means, what you guys got to do paperwork-wise.
Would you object if we put that condition on it?
Got no problem with it.
I think the problem is, Jason, are you at liberty to add, to modify your application to conditional?
I'm not the owner. I'd hate to
Yeah.
just like say it for him, but.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that we can put in the minutes, and obviously Councilman Sosa's here, and if he gets his client's permission to make that change before the council meeting next week, it's just without the owner being here to sign off on that, it's kind of hard for him to do that. I mean, we did have, remember a few months back in May of last year, we had the property that was conditions on the special use permit there on the church on Gum Branch Road.
Right.
And when Mr. Pierce stood here in front of you at planning board, it was just a straight rezoning. By the time it made it to city council, he had gotten permission to change that, and that went to a more strict standard. So when it got approved, it was actually a conditional zone with the same conditions that were placed on that property with the special use permit back in 2005 timeframe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could certainly happen. You all just have to decide which way do you want to recommend to
Well-
city council.
The fact that Councilman Sosa is here, you see us wrestle with what we're trying to do is to create, not a problem for some residents of the county, even though technically, that's not our charge, but, let's do fair play. If we were to approve this, and you understanding our issues with the buffer on that south side of the property, would you commit to assisting and seeing if you can't get that as part of, if again, assuming you guys, vote to alter the zoning, and then ultimately annex the property?
Yeah.
Would-
Well, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but I mean.
I know.
I can see where you're coming from on the buffer side point. I think the biggest thing is if we annex something for the city, then we just follow the city code. To me, that would make
Yeah.
the most sense going forward. And
Right.
if that triggered that buffer, then that's what we would do. If that answers your question, does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah, it's
So,
just,
I mean, I can definitely understand your concerns. I know where you're coming from, and then I can kind of relay that, when it comes time for that point for next
Yeah.
week. So.
I mean, because the one thing I did hear is that, and obviously staff is recommending this, and Mr. Prinz, acknowledged that there is a desire by the city for these voluntary annexations for the city to grow. So we're not trying to oppose that charter.
You just want to protect what's around it.
But, yeah, we just-
No, I definitely understand where you're coming
Okay.
from.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation?
Absolutely,
for you to
sir.
consider? So it sounds like the buffer is the concern, not only from a practical standpoint with this site, but also with our code, right? I mean, that's something that we probably need to look at and fix. So, but Ryan, let me ask you this question. If we were to rezone this corridor commercial and say within the city, given our current rules, the adjacent property was single-family residential, what would that buffer be?
It would be a 30-foot type A buffer. If it's corridor commercial next to residential, single-family, whatever, there would be a type A buffer.
So I think that gives you a really good option. If you're inclined to move this along today, you could do it with the recommendation that we look at those buffer standards and how we should apply those in areas where, they're not contiguous to existing city zoning. And I
You
mean,
nailed it.
From,
That's
from my perspective, I mean, to me, the most intuitive way to approach that would be an apples to apples thing, regardless of what the name of their zoning is. If it's a single family over here and we're corridor commercial over there, then just whatever the equivalent might be in our zoning code.
Yeah, I was looking at the table, and I think that's how I would approach it as far as an amendment. But, just looking at the table 5.2F2, it says the zoning classification of the proposed development site versus the zoning classification of adjacent land, and there's no rural agriculture or RS-15 there. So, there's some notes under the table that we would probably look to maybe add that, if it's not a city, it would be the equivalent of what the
There you go.
zoning
That's
is.
right.
Unless we have a way to match it up. But I think the note probably is the best case scenario to where we would find out what's the, what it falls in underneath, and that's what the buffer would be.
We would have a time frame between if they annex, then they still have to come back with their site plan, and these amendments to this could be done before that site plan is.
It could, but it could not happen before. So I think there's some risk there either way.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Advisory Board, I'm looking for you.
Well, I got one question, not a question, but so let's say y'all want to move forward with it. Jason, could you go to your owner and say, hey, are you open to that? And then, so when they come to council next week, and if they say, yes, we're willing to accept that 30-foot buffer, then that kind of checks all the boxes. Because like he said, I mean, to the left in the streets, that's not really a concern. It's that back south part that's the biggest concern. And so if you can get us confirmation before it goes towards council next week, then we kind of check both boxes.
And the fact that you're here and you're going to be there.
Yeah.
And again, I know you're only one person, but I think you could convey the amount of time and wrestling that we have committed to this.
Well, he's our liaison straight to city council, so
Yeah.
you hear what we're saying.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, and I don't hear anybody disagreeing with our concern.
Yeah, correct. Just got to make
It's
it
just a
make
ma-
sense for everybody.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Well,
And if the applicant chooses to amend their application to a more strict, which would be a conditional,
Right.
we can make that change between now and next week if the applicant makes that choice. That doesn't send them back to planning board there, because that goes more strict.
Yeah.
Even from an advertisement standpoint, we've been told that if it gets more strict, they just can't go the opposite direction.
sure. Yeah, we're not trying to be a cork here.
Well, I think that gentleman in the back, I feel like you got something to say.
I didn't come here to talk about it tonight, like I said, I only became aware of these requests Friday afternoon when I saw the signs. I saw that sign on Wayfar's. That property that you're referring to, the south, I'm pretty sure is part of my family. Part of it will be listed in Thelma, Hempy, and Ayers, and the other will be in Shoppers. And regardless of what was supposed to happen or the legal requirements, 10 to 25 days, I checked with them today, they don't know anything about it. They haven't received anything. And I know we had some snow weather last week, and but that's one concern that I have is what was supposed to happen versus what does happen. It's not the same thing sometimes. My great-grandfather on my Hempy, which I never knew, he owned the majority of that property years ago, including Springdale Acres as well as the Air Station. So, and I lived on part of that property. Matter of fact, when you were saying south of it, you're talking about going north 17, I'm assuming. I still got family that live there. I grew up on part of that property. I don't have a dog in that fight, but I can tell you that they know absolutely nothing about what's going on. That property sold years ago, and talking about putting commercial there, had signs up, and there's a reason that property hadn't gone up there, and I'm not so sure it's not because of what the other gentleman, council. There's some issues that have already happened.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the input. What's the pleasure of this board? I'm looking for a motion, or, I mean, somebody could make a motion and it could fail for lack of a second, or fail at vote.
Would you like some assistance with the options again? I can summarize those very succinctly because I think they're really only two.
Go ahead.
Frankly. So like Mr. Sosa was saying, we can work with the owner and their representatives between now and when it goes to council to change it to a conditional zoning application. That would allow us to impose that buffer with the city council's approval of that zoning district that night, okay? The other option would then be recommend moving forward with corridor commercial with a recommendation that staff also look at modifying the note that Ryan talked about in the table. That would be the ultimate fix for kind of these out-of-city jurisdiction buffer requirements.
Yeah.
So I think those are really the two options that you have in order to move it forward. Otherwise, it's defer it or, recommend denial.
Yeah. Homer, you got anything for us, sir?
I'm gonna let someone else make this motion.
Guess,
I think
I
somebody
sort of
else-
like the idea of the conditional approval. Yeah.
The second
Yeah.
option.
I can go along with
Okay.
that.
Go ahead. Make a motion.
The first option. I was sort of on board with the first one, where he has the conditional approval for them to make changes to the site plan.
So basically, we recommend doing it with that recommendation, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I guess I'll make a motion for approval of the zoning map amendment with the condition that they have a type A buffer in the south adjacent property, accepting the evaluation found within the staff report on findings and facts A through J, found affirmative to the direct staff, amend the CAMA future land use plan. The proposed map amendment is reasonable, however inconsistent with the CAMA land use plan as it will necessitate an amendment to the plan, being that the parcels are presently outside of our planning jurisdiction.
I have a motion. Looking for a
I'll
second.
that.
Jerry, second that. Thank you.
I don't believe you can put a condition on a flat rezoning request. I don't think that works.
You take the word condition out then and know that we are making the recommendation.
To me, I think you would approve the rezoning and basically ask that staff work on an amendment that changes the buffering standards that would then make that buffering a requirement when situations like this exist. But putting a condition on that, I think you either have to recommend as it is or recommend a denial. And then that gives Mr. Houston an opportunity to talk to his client and say, well, the planning board voiced these concerns. Are you okay with us making a change to the application to address the buffer concerns? Because it could come up next week at city council. It's not a conditional request. I don't believe that we can condition a rezoning.
Got to give it to them clean.
Would it be a
But I would say, if that's the way this board feels, what I would say to you, Councilman Sosa, is that you won't hurt our feelings if you deny it next week if those conditions don't happen.
Correct.
But in other words, we're going to, in good faith, potentially approve it as written and as staff has recommended, but knowing that you really do have the final say on that.
Right. And I think Mr. Jason, he said that he feels like he talked to his people and get that squared away by next Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
So I'll withdraw my second.
You're withdrawing your
I'll
second.
withdraw my motion.
Will you make the same motion without the word conditional in it?
I would feel personally better about deferral than
Okay,
approval.
all right, there we go. Is that where we're at?
Because my understanding, if we deny it, it still goes to council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're wasting
Correct.
time.
Well, okay, we could vote to deny it, knowing that if the conditions were changed, that they would override our recommendation, and
Is that my understanding?
maybe the smart way for us to do it.
It would still go to city council, even if we did.
It'll still go to city council.
Right.
Yeah.
Deferral or denial or approval.
Yeah, well, deferral may not go to city council, but I do want it to go to city council. Yeah,
I do as well.
okay.
Would deferral still send it to city council? Or
No.
would that delay the process?
We've advertised, but I don't believe that city council would be able to take action because of the way the general statutes are written.
So we would have to
We'd have to
recommend
send it to
denying it.
Now, you can't keep it indefinitely. I mean, you'd have to,
Yeah.
but you remember back 15 or 20 years ago, there was decisions being made by councils across the state, and they were basically not utilizing their recommending boards, and the statutes changed to say you can't circumvent your board. So
Mr. Prince, can you give us a second option again? Restate that.
So the second option, I think, really gets you what you want, frankly. The second option is to recommend moving forward with the rezoning request as is, okay? But also with the recommendation that the staff come up with a modification to the note in the buffer table that takes care of the concerns that we have about buffers with
Yes.
parcels that are outside of the city limits. Frankly, that's probably the best way to go in this case because it doesn't slow down this project. And in general, a conditional zoning is reserved for projects that are a lot more complex, that have many more moving parts. We're just talking about the one buffer. And so, and even if you wanted to put a timeline on that and say, we'd like to see a recommendation come back at the next planning board meeting, I don't think Ryan and Jennifer would have a problem with that. So.
can do that.
And that's the message that we would then convey to the city council, and I feel very confidently that they would tell us to go fix it. Because it is something that we need to
Take out the gray
address.
Back to your motion.
I don't have to make the motion, someone else can.
Grace, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the zoning map amendment with the well, let's see here. Amendment, accepting the evaluation found within the staff report based on the findings of facts A through J being found in the affirmative, and to direct staff to amend the CAMA future land use map. The proposed map amendment is reasonable, however, inconsistent with the CAMA land use map, as it will necessitate an amendment to the plan, being that the parcels are presently outside of our planning jurisdiction, and recommending of a modification for the buffer
Well,
In the UDO.
in the UDO.
in the UDO, yeah.
Yeah.
Good with that, Ryan?
Within this calendar year.
Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Jerry got a second there. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carried. I have enormous faith in Councilman Sosa to carry forth our concerns.
Yes, sir.
And even if Mr. Houston brings back his client's amended application, we'll still bring that table 5-2 back to planning board.
We won't
And
have
it'll
to
be in the next month or two, not sometime next year.
All right. Number 3 on our agenda, zoning map amendment, 1420 Blue Creek Road.
So this might be a little confusing for the board, city council, citizens, because it's been a little confusing for us. But because of a pending annexation request, the next 2 agenda items are for the same tract of land. And in essence, it would be back-to-back rezonings. One would be establishing a base district, and the next would be an amendment to a planned development district. So we're going to start with the first one, which is the base district. So as we've kind of talked about a little bit tonight, the city council has received a petition to annex 169 acres into the city's corporate limits as a satellite annexation area. It's located at 1420 Blue Creek Blue Creek Road, and it's tax parcel ID number 323-82. It's currently in the county of Onslow's zoning jurisdiction. You got one part on the one side of the road is community business, and the other side is R15, residential 15. And staff is proposing a new base district should the property be annexed to residential multifamily high density on the one side and quarter commercial on the other. So you see before you an ortho, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is going to show you the county zoning on the left. You'll see that the R15 is the purple area to the north, and then the blue area is the commercial business. And then that reflects the change that the staff is recommending that go to quarter commercial. Now, this is a little different. The large tract, we're saying residential multifamily high density for a base district. Once again, with that sewer, you're going to be able to have a little bit more of a dense type urban development there with sewer than without sewer. Without the sewer availability here, you're looking at septic tanks, and you're talking larger lot sizes to be able to fit those septic tanks, more than likely. So with sewer, you can have more density. The county's future land use map identifies this as medium density residential. Ironically enough, I'm not sure that the R15 is a medium density residential. Medium density, not knowing their plan, seems a little bit more dense than 3 per acre. And then you have the site to the south, which is a community growth area. We did post the signs. We did send out letters to the adjoining property owners. We send those letters based on the county of Onslow's tax scroll. So if you haven't updated your tax information, then you might not be getting your mail because, and we've had that happen with multiple things over the years, where we send violation notices, public hearing notifications, and it doesn't necessarily make it to the persons because they've moved and they haven't updated their address. So, but we've sent out those notices, and we've also posted a newspaper ad, and that goes twice, 2 consecutive weeks prior to the meeting. So it ran last week, it's running this week, which is prior to next week's meeting. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have on this proposed first part, which is to establish a new base district that's a city district should the property be annexed.
Ryan, I heard you say something about the county future land use being medium density residential, and that you thought that actually, I forget what the phrase was, but you said it looked more like it might be something else.
Medium density residential, to me, 3 units per acre seems like a low density residential. So it just may be that the zoning of R15 is a smaller density than what the county's future land use map calls for. Regardless, the CAMA plan, if annex, is going to have to change anyhow, and it's going to be whatever the city's land use map would be.
So how many, you said with or without sewer? If you have sewer, how many homes can actually be built in here, would be allowed?
It depends on the zoning. So, for example, the RMF LD, let's say it's a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. You know, that's 8.71 units per acre. Versus R15 would be 3 units per acre. So you're more than doubling it.
Yeah, how about if they, currently if someone developed and they had to put their own septic tanks in, what's that drop those numbers down to?
I think you're closer to the 3 units per acre, maybe 4 units per acre. But if it's an R15 zone, there's 43,000 square feet, 43,560 square feet in an acre. So if it's an R15 zone, you can't get 15 into 1 acre, not even 3 times. So the most you're going to get is 3 units per acre on an R15 zone, not even, but close. So with an RMF HD, 5,000 square foot lot sizes, that's 9 units, almost. So that's why the maximum density in RMF LD or HD zone is 8.71 dwelling units per acre, I believe.
So what were our choices for this initial zoning?
The initial zoning, I mean, it could be any city zone that's there.
Right, but it had to come down to something.
So we're going to have sewer.
Yeah.
And then the PD district allows 1.25 the density. So it's one of those things where we're looking at the PUD and we're looking at what the density could be with sewer, and that's why we landed on RMF HD.
Okay, and without considering what's next to it and the surrounding areas or what. For example, if this had come before the city and was just a city rezoning, right? We would be looking at the RA and the whatever we had that was comparable, and we would say, okay, why are we going to put this in the middle of 2 obviously different areas? With no, you know where I'm going?
It could be different, but once again, the sewer is the change,
I know that.
new dynamic that.
But just because you have the sewer doesn't mean that the land uses are necessarily compatible next to each other. You've got traffic to consider, and, you've got, other things too. I'm just,
Like you might not make this corridor commercial being in a residential area.
yeah.
And we're not proposing that here.
No.
We are-
Right, but you might not make it
Family.
condos either,
Correct.
Because you're sticking a lot of people in the middle of not many people. I mean, if I'm the people on the outside, I guarantee if this was a city, you'd probably have some people out here in this area on this left going like, okay, what's coming in behind me?
Yeah. It's like on
And
Gum
they're not
Branch.
city residents, but somebody's going to come and complain somewhere. I'm just pointing it out so that council doesn't get ambushed when this thing comes before council.
You're right, like in front of on Gum Branch by the high school.
Yeah.
When we tried to rezone that, there's big pushback.
All right, but there's also the proposal wanting us to annex this into the city, and with the definition of satellite annexation, can you explain that to those people who are watching?
So satellite annexation, which is what's being proposed, that's an area, and this may not be the technical, verbatim definition, but basically it's an area that is not contiguous to the corporate city limits. It's an area that is outside and is not connected, but the city of Jacksonville and cities across the state, we're allowed to annex areas that are not contiguous, but we have a cap. I believe it's 10%. So we can't go beyond 10% of our contiguous boundary be annexed, satellite. So we have a maximum amount that we can do. So it's just an area, I mean, we've got them all over Jacksonville, to be honest with you. We've got Patriot Park off of Pioneer Road's a satellite annexation. We've got the apartments that are on Blue Creek School Road, Trask Land on Highway 53. We've got multiple satellite annexations around town.
But if we annex this, then the city has to support the services for that.
That is correct.
What's the,
Maybe I'm outside my limits of asking, but I mean, how do we support that? Because it seems like, does it create a strain on the system?
Well, that's evaluated by city management and department directors from all the different departments that would be providing services to recommend approval of an annexation request.
Will they be making that information available to the next city council? I assume this is going before.
Yeah, this went last week, and then the second hearing will be next week. So there's a presentation, there's a public hearing where there's information provided by staff to city council when we get annexation requests submitted to us.
Is city council going to be looking at, getting to this place? I mean, obviously, there's some concerns, anyone who rides out on Blue Creek Road, so it gets into, DOT issues, I'm sure, how do you support all this extra traffic? I'm only, we're growing, okay, but anytime I make a trip to Wilmington, and I hate, I'm not trying to compare, but when I go to my in-laws in Castle Hayne, I'm dealing with going down Sidbury somewhere, and I'd see all this going on, but the roads can't support it. You know, they just can't. And so are we building something up and then we come back and we widen all the roads to support it? We've got that issue going out Gum Branch Road right now, I mean, but,
Well, look what happened at Piney Green
you know,
Road.
so it's just, you know, yeah, it's a concern, you know, getting people in and out, you know, overloading that's, you know, the roads. I get it for the annexation, you know, that's why they're here. But there's also, as we heard from public comment, there's concerns from our citizens, oh my word, what's the impact of getting the traffic impact? So have the studies been done on that, just the traffic impact?
It'll trigger a TIA.
Yeah, so there's not a TI requirement to annex the property.
Oh, I know that.
So we
Do a
don't have the
project.
study, and we typically do not request a TIA be done prior to a rezoning or zoning request because there's not plans yet.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, but I'm also hearing the citizen of Jacksonville who showed up here tonight saying, we're worried. We drive up and down that road every day, what's it gonna do? So that's not for us to answer either, but at the same time, that's a concern of this
Ryan,
citizens of this, you know, of this city.
What was the resolution to the argument that potentially, if this goes to the way that it is programmed to go, you will have not like usage there compared to adjacent? Is that just I guess a comment section complaint, or does that hold merit that we wouldn't do that if this were ours?
Are you talking about the buffer?
Higher density, I don't know, higher density population, because if they have sewer, they could theoretically build whatever we could approve, but it could be much higher density than the adjacent property owners.
And I think we have that all over the place.
Okay, so that's, okay.
So, I mean, would it be any different with RSF 5 or RMF LD?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, let's look at RMF LD for a minute, low density. Guess what the density is? 8.71.
Yeah.
So if the density is the same between one versus the other, I mean, we could change it to RMF LD. But the density is the same. RSF 7 in the city of Jacksonville, which is probably our most common single-family district, it is 6.22 units per acre. That's probably the standard zoning district that we have. That's Bryn Mawr, that's Northwoods, that's Williamsburg, RSF 7, 6 units per acre. That's double what you have in the rural areas because septic versus sewer. You're going to have a more dense development anytime you have sewer.
The surrounding ones be more similar to RSF 5? That would be 5 units per acre.
No, it's 5,000 square foot per lot.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's still that 8.71 number. I'd have to see what the square footages are on the lots, if you're talking about the lots to this side.
Yeah.
Just looking at it, if I had to guess, they're probably, I think R20 is a little, some of them are pretty big, but I mean, for the city of Jacksonville, you're probably talking RSF 7, maybe RSF 10.
10,000 square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, from the city perspective, you're welcoming this opportunity. You'd like to have this satellite.
So we're proposing a zone should council annex it. I'm not going to speak for what the police and fire, I'm saying that we are just trying to have a zoning district ready to go should that annexation occur.
Yeah.
So if I could just add
Yeah,
a
please.
couple of things
Yes.
here.
This has been the,
And this is where we've got to, again, separate the annexation action from the zoning, because all we're considering tonight is the zoning, okay? But to talk to the annexation, there will be a full staff presentation on concerns over public safety and utilities and things of that nature. There have been numerous satellite annexations similar to this in the northern part of the city. And I know you've seen zoning requests for all of those off of Ramsey Road and Drummer Kellum and so far and so forth. So this really isn't a new concept. But I think the challenge here is that the process requires that you look at this kind of blindfolded first. And then when we get to the PD, you get to see the specifics. Okay, that's the second piece of this action. In order to make a project profitable these days, of course, builders are not in the nonprofit sector. So what we're seeing is that because of the infrastructure requirements and just the sheer cost, density is what makes projects, viable. And the other thing that we look at from the city standpoint, as well as just from a general planning perspective, is that you want the density to go in areas where you have the infrastructure. Now, the water and sewer is here and it's available to support that density. I've heard the challenges about, roadway infrastructure. But frankly, given the way that the laws read and the way the processes are, we're not going to be able to pin improving all of these roadways on this one developer. So they're going to have to do their respective, part of helping to improve the infrastructure, but it's not going to be a silver bullet solution. And of course, that's what you're seeing on Gum Branch Road. People are building turn lanes and, right in, right out driveways for safety and things of that nature, but we're not seeing development projects come in and wholesale widen in intersections, for instance. It's just the sheer cost and then the limitations that we have from a statutory standpoint as to what could be required off-site, is a challenge. So long story short, from the city's perspective, we do feel like this is a good location. It's at a major intersection. It's along the water and sewer infrastructure as it exists. A part of this project is also going to help us increase the capacity to serve this area into the future. So that's another consideration. But the struggle is real because we see this all over Onslow County, around Jacksonville and Swansboro and Sneads Ferry. High density is occurring where it never has occurred before.
How far is it from the nearest corporate property, since it's a satellite? So how close is the nearest?
I believe it's within 5 miles, but I haven't pulled that dimension. Anthony, do you?
Yeah, it's closer than that. I don't remember the actual number. But I believe the number allows us to go up to 3 miles outside of the city's jurisdiction to do satellite annexation.
Okay, that's the question I was getting to, I guess. Yeah.
is this
Just plot
essentially,
something out.
it probably says that here, the intersection of Blue Creek and Pony Farm Road, is that what I'm seeing at the corner? Okay.
And if we can go back to the county's future land use map, I think there's one important piece that we need to point out. While the northern area says medium-density residential, the southern area does talk about it being a community growth area. And I think that is recognizing the presence of infrastructure and developable land.
And the county has designated that piece down at the bottom where it says site as a community business, whatever CV stands for?
Community growth, that's the future.
Well, I'm talking about the
use.
county existing zoning.
The zoning, it is commercial business,
It's that same
community
word that we
business.
said.
Okay, so community business and commercial corridor
Figure
are
out his name.
similar, correct?
It's a business zone. I mean, I don't know the county zoning district to know that it's identical to a T, but it is a business district.
I somehow have this feeling we're going to probably end up knowing a lot of the county zoning. If we keep trying to annex places, because you're going to want to get like to like changeover with as little, as shock as possible, right? Okay. And am I correct that in your conversation you were having the area that's R15 next to this site? Show me the county existing zoning. The area that's R15, you said based on what you could see, it looked like it might be like RS10.
I think from a city perspective, if we were going to zone it, it would probably be an RS10 type district,
And-
maybe an RSF7.
Okay, and then our proposed rezoning would be residential multifamily, high density.
That's what we're suggesting here at this
Okay.
intersection. That's correct.
But we could have recommended something else,
Correct.
but it wouldn't have given the owner maximum usage of his lot
It's
in
that
terms of
base
maximum
district.
potential.
Right. But I
Yeah.
mean, we could have done RSF5 and been the density base would be the same.
Sure. But we could have said RS10
We could have.
and said, okay, go for it. And that would have been fewer houses, fewer buildings on that lot, right? Correct? And fewer people there, and it would have been compatible with what's around it.
Right. And then the next request is going to be to change it to a PDR, which is going to be very fine-tuned and specific.
Well,
but-
we're assuming that, one, it gets annexed, and two, that all the other stuff happens. And what happens if this area doesn't get annexed, which I realize is not our
Stays at
concern.
R15 with the county.
But it stays whatever it is with the county, but,
Homer, I like where you're going with that. I think a lower density would probably be better for this spot. It seems like a multifamily, high density just doesn't seem like a good fit for this one. Being with the, how do we always say it, the consistent with the land use plan. This just seems sort of inconsistent to me.
I mean, I'm not considering rezoning, I'm just saying that sometimes that makes it more palatable to, I'm sorry, I'm not considering annexation, I'm just saying that a smaller area with less demand may be more palatable, but that's not my choice to do.
That's right.
I'm just saying that the way it sits right now, I'm not happy with putting a lot of people next to what looks like, to me, I agree with you, it looks like RS10. I'm putting a wide open area and putting packed people in there. Plus, where we're putting those people, where's the nearest grocery store? I mean, we talk about that a lot, but we seem to keep putting a place out in the middle of nowhere, and then we complain because there's no grocery store nearby. And yet, we don't put places near where we have stores. So that would, common sense to me would say, you put the houses next to the stores or the grocery stores, and that would make it better, but.
Well, based on the North Carolina annexation laws, it's within 3 miles
Yeah.
of the city limits, and the
I agree.
Walmart's not too far from that.
Yeah.
So, and then you also have the food line that's right down Old Maplehurst. So I'm not sure which location would be faster, but you're within 3 miles if we're proposing this as a satellite annexation, because I did look at that a second ago. So it is 3 miles, as Mr. Prinz mentioned.
If you look at the layout of the request, the residential, of course, is on the north side of the road, but then the commercial is on the south side of the road. And once we get towards the actual PUD request, I think you'll see that the intent is to have some commercial service out there in that southeastern corner.
Or the other lot in the other corner there could very well become annexed as well into commercial.
I can tell you that there's some large tracts of land in this area.
Yeah, you see that one set
One
right
here.
there on the bottom
Yeah.
left-hand corner.
I mean, but there's large tracts that are in this area. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to ask to be annexed.
No, but this is just how growth
Well-
works.
And one other thing that I'll point out, since we're talking about annexations, even though this is to establish zoning, just to reiterate for those that may be watching this or hear about it later on, this is a voluntary annexation petition. The city of Jacksonville is not looking to involuntary annex this area. So if you live here, we're not coming for your neighborhood. The state laws have changed where that's not something that I don't think we'll ever see again, at least not in my lifetime. Too much risk on the municipality to try to do a involuntary annexation. It's just not feasible.
So just to remind the board, we really need to do two things if we want to do them or deny them, but we're looking at the existing zoning as it belongs to the county, and we would bring that 169 acres to multifamily, high density, and corridor commercial. And then, should we choose, then we would recommend that it be rezoned from residential multifamily high density to PDR, the planned development residential. I mean, that's what we're being asked to do.
Close. It would be both the RMF-LD and the CC would go to PDR.
Right. Yes.
But yeah, so this one would be to this district and the next would be to that PDR with specific terms and conditions.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Ryan? Anybody have any answers?
So basically what you're saying is that it really not going to make any difference how we go about, staff is recommending the high-density multifamily. You could have put RS10 in there. Excuse me. Sorry, Hal. And then we're going to turn around and change it anyway. We can put any kind of zoning there we want, just for now, that meets, the cities, to make it there, and then, once it gets annexed, it meets our zoning, and then we're gonna turn around and just change it anyway to PDR. We're just trying to get something there placed so that we can legally change it to something else on the next item.
Not
Right.
incorrect,
Huh?
but the density base does make a difference
Okay.
with the PDR. It does reference back to the base district, number one. And number two, what if the PDR gets denied?
Right.
Then that base district, if that's what gets adopted, then that's what's,
Okay.
that's what the
Okay.
rule is then.
All right, I'm just.
So, yeah, I mean, in this particular case, we're bringing one right behind it, so you could have that train of thought, but what happens if the second one gets
Right.
denied?
I get
Then
it.
you're left with that base district that council just approved. So I wouldn't say that we shouldn't consider what the base district is, because there's density affiliated with that, and there's also, what if the next part doesn't come to fruition? I think you have to look at this by itself, even though you know that there's one coming behind it, you still have to look at this by itself.
Homer, that, we don't need to be stacking a bunch of people in there.
But now, the R15 is basically 3 residents per acre, 3.
Ryan, what happens if what happens if we make I'm sorry, let's back that up. What happens if we deny this? Do we even go to number 4?
I think we would, yes.
Okay. I'm ready for a motion.
Because
You ready?
city
Entertain a motion.
council could approve it
Okay.
per the applicant's request anyhow.
Right.
That's right, we're just making a recommendation.
Yeah,
Okay,
they have the final say.
So I move that that I recommend that we deny the zoning map amendment based upon findings of fact D and E being in the negative. D is the proposed amendment is compatible with existing proposed uses, and E is the proposed amendment would result in a logical and orderly development pattern. all the others being affirmative. And then I don't think we have to worry about the rest of it, do we?
Is that the end of your recommendation?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the request as presented. Are there any further questions or concerns?
There's not.
All in favor of denying, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. It is denied. Number 3. Now, number 4.
That means it still goes before council.
Yeah, this was
Yes.
just a recommendation.
That's right.
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay, you're going to take us through number 4?
I will take you through number 4. So the applicant has requested that this property that we've been talking about at 1420 Blue Creek School Road be rezoned after an assumed city zoning district has been established to planned development residential. Same tax map information as the previous one. Even though we say current zoning, when it gets to city council, it's going to be based on the assumption that something just happened in the motion before.
Right.
Project site we've been talking about. One thing that I'll point out that we didn't point out on the other two is on here, but basically if you look at the crosshatching here, that's the flight path overlay district. So just to let the board know that this is in the flight path overlay district, so there's some limitations that are affiliated with that. We don't have okay, so within your, I apologize that we don't have the master plan in the slides. So if you'll look on your, the last 3 pages on your agenda packets, you'll see, no, I'm sorry, not the last 3. Let me tell you what the page number here. Should be the colorful map. Well, they're several colorful. A lot of burnt orange or red.
This one?
On page 147 of 159. Yes, sir, that one there.
That one, guys?
So this is the,
I haven't seen that one yet.
It's not in.
so the master plan identifies that basically everything on this side would be, with the exception of this corner here. So the corner closest to the intersection would be an 8.1 acres of commercial on that side of the road. Everything else would be either single-family or multifamily with per the terms and conditions in the plan, a maximum density. Jennifer, do you know if that's, or even Laura or Michaela, do y'all know if it's 6 units an acre, I believe that they had specified that they would not exceed? Okay, this says 8.71 is, let's see, hold on.
It looks like 8.71 to me.
Yeah.
Say again?
It looks like 8.71 to me.
Yep. So even though the zoning district may allow apartments or things like that, the density is still going to be capped at that 8.71. So it's not like they're asking for 25 dwelling units an acre with the PD that the base district could allow. Let's see. And then there's also terms and conditions that is in the packet as part of your master plan in attachment F. And with the planned development district, the master plan and the terms and conditions are all going to be part of the approval process, and they would be binding. I have to let the board know that we just received revisions to these today, and we have 2 concerns that we would just basically preface that if we approve this, the terms and conditions would be subject to, we believe that there may be some legal questions as it relates to the modification and amendment process. That's spelled out in the UDO per staff's interpretation. It's defined, they cannot modify those standards the way that we read the code. They're proposing to amend the modification deviation process, and we don't think that that's allowed, so that would have to be stricken if we get a legal determination that that's the case. And then the same thing that we've talked to the applicant about with the uses. The uses that are allowed would be those that are identified in the use table with an MP next to it versus those with slashes beside it. Slashes are prohibited uses. So the only uses that could go in here are those that have an MP within the use table, not every single use that's in the use table. So those are two items that we're trying to get legal concurrence on before we get to city council next week. But if this gets adopted, these terms and conditions, minus with the caveat with those, would be what moves forward, and that's going to basically be what the maximums are. So they couldn't put commercial anywhere beyond that 8 acres here. They couldn't put commercial back here in the back.
Gotcha.
They're limited to just the single family and multifamily in that area.
And Ryan, I remember with, are these PDRs, is that the correct term?
Yes, sir.
That these are set, so there's no changing. Once you set it, they'd have to file for a whole new PDR if they want to make any amendments or changes to it.
The UDO says what an amendment is versus what a modification is. And there's certain things that you're allowed to do that staff can approve. And if it goes beyond that, it's got to go back through the same process in which it goes through, which is planning board and city council public hearings. That's the part that staff believes that it's got to go back through the process. You can't modify those standards. But that's where we're waiting to get, legal concurrence on, because we don't believe that they can amend those terms. As far as, they can't put a different standard in their terms and conditions.
And that's how we've done all the previous PDRs?
Correct.
Okay.
Ryan, if we deny this, it goes before council also, and that gives them time to take care of those questions?
It's going to go to city council with a recommendation of denial, yes.
Okay. You ready? Ready? Okay.
Make a motion, sir.
Yes, I move we deny this rezoning based upon findings of facts B, D, and E being in the negative. B says there are changed conditions that require an amendment. D, as we said before, and E, as we said before.
I'll second that.
You have a second? Any further discussion, any questions? All those in favor of denying as the motion stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to that? Motion carries as denied.
Bob, when me and my wife do excuse, thank you so much. We appreciate it. That's the first time.
Everybody cards, carry
Thank
on.
you for joining us tonight.
Yes.
Yes. Come back anytime.
Yes.
All right. Next on the agenda, I believe, is Ryan. So the next on the agenda would be a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good evening. Nobody.